My friend and I were in Miami during spring break in our final year of college. I'm 22, she is too, and we had planned that trip for months. It was the first time we traveled alone to such a busy place, and everything felt exactly like we had imagined. Crowded beaches, loud music, people everywhere. That night we had gone out to a bar near the South Beach area. Nothing too crazy, but it was already late when we decided to leave. I remember it was hot, that humid heat that doesn't go away even at night. And the street was still full of people, cars passing slowly, music coming from all directions. We stood on the sidewalk waiting, trying to figure out how to get back. We called a ride through the app like we always did, because it felt safer than taking anything off the street. The app showed that a driver had accepted, but he was still a few minutes away. While we waited, a car pulled up in front of us. It didn't seem strange at first, because there were plenty of cars stopping there to pick people up. The driver rolled down the window and said my friend's name, directly, as if he was already confirming the ride. That made us look at each other immediately. My friend responded automatically, almost on impulse, confirming her name. The driver nodded and said something quickly, explaining that the app was delayed in that area and that he had already picked up the ride before it showed up for us. That sounded strange to me right away. I looked at my phone to check, and the car shown in the app was still a few minutes away in a completely different location on the map. It didn't match. I told her that quietly, but the driver interrupted, saying that was common there, especially in such a busy area. He sounded confident, spoke directly, without hesitation. The car was ordinary, nothing noticeable, and there were other people getting into similar cars nearby. My friend, already tired and wanting to go back, opened the back door and got in. That gave me immediate discomfort, but I didn't want to leave her alone. Even with that feeling that something wasn't right, I got in too. As soon as we closed the doors, the car started moving. I looked at my phone again, trying to follow the route on the app, but the ride hadn't even shown as started yet. That made me more tense. I told my friend quietly that nothing was showing up, and she replied that it might just be a delay, still trying to justify it. The driver didn't say anything for a few seconds, just kept driving, staring straight ahead. The air inside the car felt colder than normal, and the sound of the street became more distant as we moved away from the busy area. After a few minutes, I started to realize that the route didn't look like the one the app had shown before. Even without the ride active, I roughly remembered the general direction of our hotel. This felt different. I tried to look outside, recognizing the streets, but I couldn't identify anything familiar. That's when I pulled the door handle almost without thinking. It didn't open. I pulled it again, harder. Nothing. My stomach dropped instantly. I pulled the handle one more time, trying not to look panicked, but my body had already understood before my mind. It wouldn't open. I felt my breathing shorten and quickly looked at my friend. She tried too, more discreetly, and got the same result. The doors wouldn't open from the inside. That's when I started noticing other details. The locks were engaged, and there wasn't that usual unlock button accessible on the door panel. My heart started beating faster, and that feeling of something being very wrong became clear. I told the driver the route was wrong, trying to keep my voice steady, not desperate. He didn't respond immediately. He just kept driving as if he hadn't heard. I repeated it more directly this time, asking if he was going to the correct address. He answered too calmly, saying he was taking a faster route. That didn't reassure me at all. I looked out the window again, trying to recognize something, but the streets were getting emptier with less light and less movement. I picked up my phone again and tried to open the app to cancel the ride, even though it hadn't started. My hands were starting to sweat, and I felt that tension rising through my body. The screen showed that the original driver was still on the way, somewhere else in the city. That confirmed it completely. That car had nothing to do with the ride we had requested. I showed the screen to my friend, and her expression changed immediately. That's when she understood too. I told the driver more firmly that we wanted to get out. He didn't respond. He just kept driving. The silence inside the car became heavy, and I started noticing small details. He didn't look in the rearview mirror, didn't interact, just kept his hands on the wheel and drove forward. I tried pulling the handle again, harder this time, but it didn't help. That's when I noticed the windows weren't fully going down either. They only opened a few inches, not enough to get out. I started to feel a more direct panic, but I tried to stay focused. I told my friend very quietly for us to act together. She nodded, clearly nervous now. I looked at the door panel, trying to find some kind of unlock button, but there was nothing accessible. That's when the driver spoke for the first time after a while of silence. "You don't need to mess with that." His tone wasn't loud or aggressive. It was too calm. That gave me an immediate chill. We looked at each other again, and I noticed she was holding her phone tightly, as if ready to call someone. I made a small gesture, as if telling her to wait for the right moment. I started paying more attention to the street, trying to find any place with movement, any chance to get attention. The streets were getting emptier, with less lighting and almost no cars passing. My heart was racing and my breathing was uneven, trying not to panic. I started thinking quickly about what we could do without making things worse. I looked at my friend's phone and told her quietly to send her location to someone, anyone. She opened her sister's contact and started typing with shaking hands. I kept looking forward, trying not to draw the driver's attention. That's when I noticed the car started to slow down. It didn't stop completely, but it slowed, as if entering an even emptier street. I felt it was our only chance. I whispered to her, "Now." At the same time, I pulled the door handle again, hard, trying to see if it would unlock automatically at any point. Nothing. So I started hitting the window with my hand, trying to make some kind of noise. My friend did the same. The driver didn't say anything, just kept driving as if nothing was happening. That's when I noticed the window was going down slightly, enough to get a hand through. I pushed the window down as much as it would go and started hitting outward, trying to get someone's attention, even though we couldn't see anyone on the street. My friend did the same on her side, trying to shout even if it was low at first. The car was still moving, but slow enough for us to try something. I felt the warm air coming through that small opening, and it gave me a strange sense of reality, like the situation had finally become too real to ignore. That's when the driver spoke again, this time a bit firmer. "Stop that." That gave me an even stronger push. I started hitting harder, no longer worried about drawing attention. My friend raised her voice, shouting for help. We couldn't see anyone, but we didn't stop. The car slowed even more for a few seconds, and then suddenly it stopped completely. The car stayed still for a second that felt much longer than it actually was. No one said anything. The engine was still on, and the air inside felt heavier. I didn't wait. I pulled the handle again, almost without hope, and this time it opened. I didn't think. I pushed the door and got out quickly, almost stumbling, feeling the warm asphalt under my feet. My friend got out right after me, and we moved away from the car without looking back for the first few steps. When I finally looked, the car was still there for a second, and then it started moving again. It didn't accelerate aggressively. It just turned down the street and left as if nothing had happened. That gave me a strange feeling, because there was no reaction, no confrontation. It just ended. We stood there for a few seconds, trying to understand what had just happened, breathing heavily with our bodies still on full alert. We managed to call another ride through the app afterward, this time checking everything before getting in. When we finally got to the hotel, my hands were still shaking. I kept thinking about every detail, trying to understand at what moment we could have avoided it. But what bothers me the most to this day isn't just the fact that we got into the wrong car. It's knowing that he already knew her name before the ride even appeared. Story 2. My boyfriend and I were traveling through Arizona during spring break, kind of without a set plan, just driving and stopping wherever seemed interesting. I'm 23, he's 24, and we were used to taking this kind of more spontaneous trip. That day we had planned to stay in a slightly bigger town, but we ended up losing the reservation because we arrived too late. It was already night and the road was practically empty. We started looking for any place to spend the night because driving tired wasn't an option. After a few minutes on the road, we saw a roadside motel. There was nothing eye-catching about it, just a simple sign, a bit faded with some lights flickering. The place looked old, with few rooms and practically no movement. Even so, since we just needed somewhere to sleep, we decided to stop. I already felt a slight discomfort just looking at the place, but I tried to ignore it. We got out of the car and went to the reception, which was a small room with a dim light on. The reception was empty when we walked in. There was no one at the counter, no sign of other guests nearby. The place had that smell of a closed environment, kind of stuffy, mixed with old cleaning products. The lighting was weak, a yellowish light that made everything look worn. We stood there for a few seconds, waiting for someone to show up. That's when a man came out of a door in the back. He didn't make any noise when he arrived, he just appeared. He was older, maybe in his 50s, with a neutral expression, and avoided looking directly at us. He spoke briefly, asked if we wanted a room. My boyfriend said yes, and he just nodded without asking any additional questions, without asking for ID. Nothing. That was already strange, but at that moment we just wanted to get it done quickly. He took a key from behind the counter, placed it on the desk, and said the room number. He didn't explain anything, didn't give instructions, didn't ask for a signature. He just pointed in the direction of the rooms. We took the key and left the reception without much interaction. Outside, the environment felt even stranger. There were practically no cars parked, just ours. The doors of the other rooms were all closed, and there were no lights on inside them. No sound of TV, no conversation, nothing. It was complete silence. Just the light wind passing through the open motel area. That started to bother me more, because it didn't feel like a place functioning normally. Our room was closer to the end of the outdoor corridor. We walked there with the sound of our own footsteps echoing more than usual. My boyfriend opened the door and we went in. The room was simple, nothing too unusual, but it had that feeling of little use, like it wasn't frequently occupied. The air was still with a faint smell of dust. I put my backpack on the bed and looked around, trying to get used to the environment. We tried to act like it was just a simple old place, nothing more than that. My boyfriend closed the door and locked it, testing the handle twice to make sure. I went to the window which faced the back of the motel and looked outside. Just darkness and a bit of empty land. No movement, no distant lights except from the road in front. I pulled the curtain and went back to the bed, trying to ignore that strange feeling that was becoming more present. We spent some time on our phones trying to relax, but the silence was too heavy. There wasn't that usual motel noise. People arriving, doors opening, TVs on in other rooms. Nothing. Just the faint sound of the wind and occasionally some creaking from the structure. That's when I heard the first different sound. Footsteps outside the room, slow, passing right by the door. I looked at my boyfriend immediately and he had heard it too. We stayed silent, trying to listen better. The footsteps continued for a few seconds, passing in front of our room, and then stopped. It wasn't a clear movement away, it was just a pause, as if someone had stopped right there outside. My body tensed automatically, and I felt that light chill in my stomach. We didn't say anything, just listened. After a few seconds, there was a faint sound at the doorknob. Very faint. Like someone was testing it, slowly turning it without applying force. That made my heart race immediately. My boyfriend got up from the bed, staying close to the door but without making noise. The doorknob moved again at the same pace. It wasn't someone trying to break in. It was more like checking if it was locked. We stayed completely still without making any sound. My boyfriend didn't open the door, just stood there watching while I remained sitting on the bed staring in that direction. The doorknob turned one more time, and then stopped. Silence returned suddenly, heavy again. I waited a few seconds trying to hear if the person would walk away, but I couldn't make out any footsteps leaving. After some time that I can't really measure, the footsteps came back. This time passing again in front of the door, but slower, as if the person was walking carefully. And then once again they stopped right there. My body stiffened even more and I felt that pressure in my chest, like I was holding my breath without realizing it. The sound at the doorknob came again. Slow, controlled. This time it lasted a bit longer. The knob was turned several times in a row, always with that strange care, without force. My boyfriend gestured for me not to move and I stayed completely still, trying to even control my breathing. After a few seconds, the sound stopped again, and this time footsteps moved away, slow, going in the direction of the other rooms. We didn't relax. We stayed silent for a long time, waiting to see if it would come back. I couldn't sleep. Neither could my boyfriend. We stayed with the lights off, just looking at the dark room, listening for any sound. And then, after a time that felt way too long, the footsteps came back. Same direction, same pace, and stopped again at our door. This time the feeling was worse, because it didn't feel random anymore. It felt like repetition. The sound at the doorknob came again, but now a little firmer. Still not enough force to break in, but more insistent than before. My heart was pounding and I felt my hands getting cold. My boyfriend stood next to the door, staring at it as if trying to decide whether to say something or not. After a few seconds, the sound stopped completely. There were no footsteps moving away this time. Just silence. That was what bothered me the most, because it felt like the person was still there on the other side, standing still, waiting. I stared at the door without blinking much, trying to hear anything, but there was nothing. We ended up staying like that for hours, barely speaking, just waiting for time to pass. At moments I thought it was over, that the person had gone away. But then suddenly the footsteps would come back. Always the same pattern. Always stopping at our door. Always that light test of the doorknob. It started to feel too intentional to be coincidence. Like someone knew exactly which room was occupied. I looked at my boyfriend and whispered that this wasn't normal. He agreed, but also didn't know what to do at that moment without risking making things worse. We didn't open the door at any point. We just stayed there waiting with that constant feeling that someone was on the other side, knowing we were inside. When it finally started to get light, the silence returned for good. We didn't hear any more footsteps nor any sound at the door. Morning light came through the curtain gaps, and that brought some partial relief. We waited a little longer before going out, just to make sure no one was there. When my boyfriend opened the door, the corridor was completely empty. No sign of movement, no open doors, nothing. We went straight to the reception. But when we got there, no one was there. Not even the man from the night before. The room looked exactly the same, empty with the dim light on. There was no register, no computer on. Nothing indicating that someone actually managed that place normally. That made me uncomfortable in a different way. We left and went straight back to the road. On the way, my boyfriend mentioned that he found it strange that there were several copies of keys hanging behind the counter. That made me think of something else. If someone had easy access to those keys, then that door had never really been secure. Later, when we tried to look the place up online for reviews or any information, we couldn't find anything active. No recent listings, no website, nothing confirming that the motel was still officially operating. To this day, what bothers me the most isn't just that someone stood outside trying to get in. It's knowing that that night we were in a place where someone had direct access to the room and chose not to enter. Story 3. 3 friends and I rented a house on a small island off the coast of South Carolina during spring break. I'm 22, and we were trying to get away from the more crowded, noisy beaches, so we chose a more isolated place. The house was practically facing the ocean, but it wasn't a typical open beach. It was a more restricted area, with controlled access where normally only residents or authorized people could arrive by boat. That was one of the things we were told when we made the reservation. The idea was to have more peace and quiet. We arrived in the late afternoon, everything normal. The house was wooden, with a large porch and wide windows facing the ocean. There were other houses scattered around the island, but far apart from each other. It wasn't a completely isolated place, but at night it became silent in a way we weren't used to. On the first night, we had dinner, drank a little, and sat talking on the porch. The sound of the waves was constant, and the wind carried that strong, salty smell. Nothing unusual up to that point. It was already late when we went inside. But before that, I walked to the edge of the porch to look at the ocean more closely. That's when I saw the boat. Small. Nothing very noticeable, but it was there. Stopped near the darker part of the sand where there normally wasn't easy access. At that moment, I thought it was strange because the owner had been very clear about how that part of the island was controlled. It wasn't a common spot for someone to just dock without authorization. I called the others and we stood there looking for a few seconds. The boat had no lights on, no visible movement. It was just there still. One of my friends said it could be someone who knew the area and decided to stop there. Another said maybe it was someone fishing. We tried not to think too much about it, because it didn't seem like anyone was approaching the house at that moment. Even so, it stuck in our minds because it didn't match what we had been told about access to the island. We ended up going inside and locking the house, more out of habit than real concern at that point. We stayed in the living room talking for a while with a dim light on, until we started getting sleepy. Each of us went to our room and the house became silent again, with only the constant sound of the ocean outside. I remember lying down still thinking about that boat, trying to fit some logical explanation, but I ended up falling asleep anyway. I don't know how much time passed before I woke up, but it was still completely dark. What woke me up was a faint sound, almost imperceptible at first. It sounded like someone walking outside the house. Footsteps slow. I stayed lying down for a few seconds, trying to figure out if it was just in my head or some normal sound from the wood or the wind. But the sound came again, clearer this time. It wasn't the wind. I got up slowly, trying not to make any noise, and went to the bedroom door. I opened it just a little, enough to look into the dark hallway. The house was silent, no one else seemed to be awake yet. I stood there listening, and then I heard it again. Footsteps outside, closer now. My body went on alert immediately, and I felt that slight chill in my stomach. I stepped into the hallway and went to the living room, still in the dark. I passed by the window but didn't get close enough to look outside. I didn't want to expose myself. That's when I heard another sound. A light tap on one of the windows. It wasn't strong. It wasn't a knock. It was like someone was testing the glass, touching it lightly. That made my heart race. I stood still, not knowing whether to wake the others or not. I decided to wake them. I went to the first bedroom and called quietly, trying not to make noise. Within seconds, everyone was awake, still a bit confused, but quickly understanding that something was wrong. We stayed in the living room without turning on the lights, just listening. The footsteps came back, now clearer, moving around the house, passing by one window and then another, always at the same slow pace. My heart was already racing and I felt that tension throughout my body. Then I heard another tap, this time on a window closer to the kitchen. One of my friends gestured for no one to move and we all stayed completely still. The sound wasn't of someone trying to break in. It was lighter, like testing, checking. It felt too deliberate. The footsteps continued, circling the entire house. We could track the movement just by the sound, going from one window to another, stopping for a few seconds at each one. That made it clear that it wasn't someone just passing by. It was someone checking every part of the house. My stomach tightened hard at that point because it started to feel far too intentional. After a few minutes, everything stopped. Silence returned in a strange way, as if nothing had ever happened. We stood there waiting for any sound of someone leaving, any sign that whoever was outside had gone away. Nothing. No footsteps, no sound on the sand, nothing coming from the ocean, just the waves. That was what bothered me the most. We stayed there in silence, not knowing exactly what to do. No one wanted to go to the window to confirm anything, and we also didn't want to make noise that could reveal where we were inside the house. My body was completely tense and I felt that constant pressure in my chest. Then after a few seconds, another sound came, closer. A tap on one of the living room windows, right near where we were. I felt a chill run up my back immediately. That didn't feel like someone just moving around outside anymore. It felt like they knew where we were now. One of my friends moved slightly closer to the side wall, trying to listen better without exposing himself. We stayed completely still. The tap came again. Same spot, slow, controlled. I stayed completely still, trying not to make any sound. My breathing was shallow and I had to control myself not to inhale too loudly. The tap came once more in the same place, as if someone was testing whether there was still a reaction inside. That started to feel like a pattern. It wasn't random. It was repetition, almost as if they were waiting for some response from us. After a few seconds, the sound stopped again, and then came footsteps. But this time more than one. It wasn't a single rhythm anymore. There were two, maybe three, moving around the house. That made my stomach drop for real. I looked at my friends and it was clear everyone had understood the same thing. It wasn't just one person. We stayed there without moving, trying to listen better. The footsteps continued for a few seconds, moving around different sides of the house, and then stopped again. Silence returned abruptly, and that was what made me the most uncomfortable, because we couldn't tell where they were now, whether they were still nearby, whether they had left, or if they were standing somewhere watching. We didn't sleep at all that night. We stayed together in the living room without turning on the lights, just waiting for time to pass. Every now and then, someone thought they heard something, but it was impossible to be sure. The sound of the waves made everything blend together. Even so, the feeling that we weren't alone out there never went away. When it started to get light, we carefully went to the window and looked outside. The beach was empty. The boat we had seen the night before was gone. That was already strange on its own. But when we went outside and walked to the sand, we saw something that made everything worse. There were footprints. Several, not just one or two. They were spread all around the house in the damp sand, circling almost the entire structure. Some led toward the spot where the boat had been. Others passed very close to the windows. It was as if several people had been walking around there the entire night. We left that same day without thinking twice. To this day, what bothers me the most isn't just that they were there. It's knowing that they weren't trying to break in by force. They were just walking around, as if they were waiting for the right moment. Story 4. I'm 21 years old and study at a university in Atlanta, Georgia. During spring break, a lot of people stay in the city, and there are always these kind of improvised parties. That week, I was hanging out with a group of friends. Nothing too fixed, just people who know each other from classes or mutual friends. One of those days, someone sent a message in a group saying there was going to be a party at a house farther out, in a residential area a bit outside downtown. That wasn't unusual. There are always smaller parties like that. No one seemed to know exactly who was organizing it, but everyone was going, so I ended up going too. I went with 2 friends by car, and it was already later at night. The street was quiet, with large houses, little lighting, and almost no movement. When we got there were already a few cars parked in front, which made it seem like there were actually people there. The house was normal, nothing very noticeable. Lights on inside and music playing low, almost hard to hear from outside. That already felt a bit different, because normally these parties are loud, but we didn't think much of it at the time. We went in without much difficulty. The door was open, and there were a few people scattered around the living room. But within the first few seconds inside, I felt that the atmosphere was different. The music was too low, almost like background noise, and people weren't really interacting like at a normal party. There were small groups talking, but in low tones, almost restrained. No one was laughing loudly, no one dancing, none of what you expect at a spring break party. I looked at my friends without saying anything, and I could tell they thought it was strange too. Even so, we walked further in, trying to blend in. Some people looked at us when we entered, but it wasn't that quick, casual glance of curiosity. It lasted longer. Some people held eye contact for too long before looking away. That started to make me uncomfortable, but I still tried to ignore it, thinking maybe it was just a different kind of environment. We stayed near the entrance for a few minutes, trying to understand the atmosphere better. One of my friends asked quietly if that really felt like a party, and I agreed that it didn't feel normal. Even so, we decided to stay a bit, see if more people showed up, if the mood changed. I started walking around the living room, trying to observe people more closely. That's when I noticed something else strange. No one seemed truly at ease. The conversations were short, and whenever someone moved, it felt like others noticed immediately. At one point, I walked past a group talking near the wall. As soon as I got close, they stopped talking for a second. It wasn't natural. It was like they had interrupted something. I kept walking, pretending I hadn't noticed, but that feeling got stronger. I looked around and had the impression that in several parts of the house, people were following my movements with their eyes, even if subtly. I went back to my friends, and one of them said quietly that he also thought it was way too strange. We started talking about how no one seemed to know who had actually organized that party. When we asked, the answers were vague, like, "I think it was a friend of someone," or "I'm not sure I was invited too." That didn't help at all. It felt like no one there had a clear connection to the place. While we were talking, I noticed something else. People weren't using their phones at all. No one scrolling, no one taking pictures, no one recording videos. At a normal party, especially with college students, that happens all the time. There, it didn't. It was like everyone was focused only on the environment, or on who was inside it. That's when I felt a more direct discomfort, like we didn't belong there. I started feeling like it didn't make sense to stay. It wasn't just strange, it was uncomfortable in a way that was hard to explain. I told my friends maybe we should leave. They agreed immediately without even discussing it. That said a lot. We turned toward the exit, trying to act normal without drawing attention, but as we moved through the room, I felt like more eyes were turning toward us. We got to the front door and tried to open it. It didn't open. My friend tried again, thinking maybe it was just stuck. Nothing. That's when he said quietly that it seemed locked. My stomach dropped instantly. I looked around quickly, trying to see if there was another visible exit, but I didn't want to move too far without understanding what was happening. The silence around us became more noticeable. My friend tried the handle again, harder this time, but it stayed locked. That's when we realized it wasn't just a difficult door, it was actually locked, and it didn't feel like it was locked from the inside. The shift in the environment came fast, that kind you notice before you fully understand it. I looked around, trying not to show panic, but something had already changed. That's when I realized the conversations had stopped. Not gradually, all at once. The music was still there, low, but now it felt even more distant. When I turned my head, I saw several people looking in our direction. It wasn't casual. It was direct, fixed. My whole body tensed instantly, and I felt that chill run up my back. No one spoke for a few seconds. Just that heavy silence, with the low music in the background and multiple people staring at us. I tried to stay calm and said something simple, like we were just leaving, trying to act like everything was normal. But no one responded. No one moved. It was like they were waiting for something. My friend tried the handle again, as if that would somehow fix it, but it was still locked. I started looking around more carefully, trying to find another way out. That's when I noticed that some people were closer now. Not obviously, but the space between them and us felt smaller. My heart started beating faster and my breathing got shorter. I felt like we needed to act quickly before things got worse. I told my friends quietly that we should try another exit, any other door. We started moving slowly, trying not to look panicked, but you could feel people's eyes following every step. No one said anything. They just watched. That made everything heavier. We turned into a side hallway, trying to find a back door or some alternative exit. The lights there were dimmer and the silence was even more noticeable. When we reached the end of the hallway, there was a door. My friend went straight to it and tried to open it. Locked. He tried again, faster this time. Nothing. My stomach tightened hard at that moment. I started to feel real panic rising. We went back through the hallway, now moving faster, no longer trying to hide it as much. When we returned to the main room, the feeling was worse. More people were watching. Not everyone, but enough to make it clear that it wasn't just in our heads. Some were completely still with that fixed, expressionless stare. That's when one of my friends said quietly, barely moving his mouth, that the front gate might be an option if we could get out of the house. That became the focus immediately. We headed toward the main door again. This time we didn't try to act normal. We went straight for it. My friend grabbed the handle firmly and tried to open it again. Nothing. That's when I felt like we were running out of time. My heart was racing and my mind wasn't trying to understand anymore, just get out. I quickly looked around, trying to find anything that could help. That's when I noticed that next to the door there was a large window with a simple latch. I went straight to it without thinking. My hands were a bit shaky, but I managed to unlock it. I pushed hard and the window opened enough for us to get through. My friend went first, practically throwing himself out, and I went right after him. My other friend came out next. As soon as I hit the ground outside, I felt the cold air hit my face and it gave me an immediate sense of reality. We didn't look back right away. We just ran to the car with that feeling that someone could come out of the house at any moment. When I finally got in and shut the door, my hands were shaking on the steering wheel. I looked in the rearview mirror for a second. The house looked exactly the same. Lights on, no visible movement outside. We drove away without saying much for the first few minutes. Only later, when we were far away, did we start trying to understand what that had been. No one had a clear explanation. No one knew who had organized that party. And what bothers me the most to this day isn't just the locked door. It's remembering the moment when everyone stopped talking at the exact same time, as if it had already been planned. Story 5. I'm 25 years old and live in San Diego. And during last year's spring break, I decided to take a trip with 3 friends to Utah. We wanted to get away from the beach and parties, do something different, so we chose to explore some canyon trails. None of us had much experience with more isolated hiking, so we decided to book a guided tour we found online that seemed well reviewed. It was a small group, local guide. Everything seemed safe. On the scheduled day, we met the guide at a parking area near a well-known trail region. He was a guy in his 40s, pretty calm at first impression, didn't talk much, but seemed to know the area well. The beginning was completely normal. The trail was well marked, the sun wasn't too strong yet, and there were other people in the area, even if spread out. The landscape was open, with those typical rock formations of the region, and the ground was dry, with sand and loose stones. The guide walked ahead, explaining basic things, pointing out formations, speaking in a practical way. We followed without difficulty. I was even relaxed, enjoying the place. After a while, he stopped and said he could show a shortcut that led to a less touristy part of the canyon, where the view was better and there weren't many people. At the time, no one questioned it much. He turned toward a side that didn't seem part of the main trail. There was no sign, no marking on the ground, just a passage between rocks that looked like it had been used a few times, but not officially. One of my friends asked if it was safe to leave the route, and the guide quickly replied that he had known that area for years and that it was fine. We ended up following. At first, we could still see the main trail in the distance, so it didn't seem like a big detour. But after a few minutes, that changed. We could no longer see the path we came from. The rock formations started to close in, creating narrower passages with less visibility. The ground became more uneven, with more loose stones. And the strangest part was the silence. Before, we could still hear people in the distance, but now we couldn't. No voices, no footsteps, just the wind moving through the rocks. I felt a slight discomfort at that moment, but I still tried to think it was just because we were heading into a less crowded area. After a few more minutes walking, I noticed the pace had changed. The guide was no longer explaining anything or pointing things out like before. He just walked ahead, occasionally looking back, but not to talk to the group. More like he was observing who was falling behind, who was getting tired. That started to bother me in a strange way. It wasn't obvious behavior, but it felt calculated. One of my friends quietly commented to me that the path felt strange, and I agreed, but I still tried not to alarm the others. That's when the guide started asking questions. At first, they seemed normal: where we were from, how long we'd been traveling. But then they became more specific. He asked who was staying whether we were traveling only among ourselves or with more people, how long we were going to stay in the region. It wasn't the kind of conversation you expect on a guided hike. He asked while walking, not looking directly but paying attention to the answers. I started to feel a slight pressure in my chest, that sense that something wasn't right but without being able to point out exactly what. We kept walking, but now more alert. I began paying attention to the path, trying to remember landmarks, but there was almost nothing repeated. Everything looked the same: rocks, sand, narrow passages. There were no markings, no clear trail footprints. Then one of my friends directly asked how much longer until we turned back. The guide answered quickly, saying we were already close to a return point. But the way he said it didn't feel reassuring. It was short, almost automatic. I started to feel like we were going deeper, not returning. The sun was higher now, the heat stronger, and the water we had brought wasn't enough for a long route. That started weighing on my mind. I looked back, trying to identify the way back, but everything looked the same. That's when I noticed something else. We had no cell signal anymore. I even raised my phone to check, but nothing. That made the discomfort even stronger. At that point, I really started to become alert. It wasn't just a strange feeling anymore, it was a sequence of things that didn't fit. I looked at my friends, and you could tell they were starting to notice too. One of them tried talking to the guide again, asking if we were close to any known route or other hiking group. The guide answered without stopping, saying that area was less frequented. While he spoke, I noticed something else. He was looking at us more directly now. Not the group as a whole, but person by person. Observing, as if evaluating something. That gave me a stronger discomfort. My body started reacting, tension in my shoulders, shorter breathing. I moved closer to my friends without saying anything, just instinctively. That's when one of my friends, Jake, quietly said it didn't make sense. He said he had been trying to follow the route using an offline map he had downloaded earlier, and the direction didn't match any known trails in the area. That hit me hard because until then I was still trying to rationalize things, but hearing that from someone who was trying to confirm it technically changed everything. I felt my stomach tighten immediately. We slowed down a bit, staying closer together, and the guide noticed. He turned and asked if everything was okay, but he didn't seem genuinely concerned. He seemed more attentive to our reaction. Jake said yes, but asked if we weren't going too far. The guide gave a quick half smile, the kind that doesn't last even a second, and said we were almost at a better viewpoint. That didn't reassure me at all. We kept walking, but now no one was relaxed anymore. I started paying attention to every detail in the environment, trying to identify any sign of a more commonly used path, any mark on the ground, anything that suggested that route was normal. There was nothing, just loose sand and rock with no defined trail. The heat was getting stronger, and I felt my mouth dry even though I had just drunk water. The sense of isolation started to weigh more heavily. That's when Jake said quietly, barely moving his mouth, that we needed to stop following. That hit hard because until then we had been going on autopilot, trusting that it would make sense at some point. I agreed immediately, and so did the others. We slowed down even more until we almost stopped. The guide took a few more steps ahead and then realized we weren't following anymore. He turned slowly. He stood there looking at us for a few seconds without saying anything. The silence there was strange because there was no sound except the wind passing through the rocks. My heart started beating faster, and I felt that tension rising through my whole body. Jake spoke first, saying we preferred to go back to the main trail. The guide didn't respond right away, he just kept looking, as if evaluating the situation. After a few seconds, he said it didn't make sense to go back now, that we were already close to a better area. But his tone had changed. It was no longer explanatory, it was more direct. That only confirmed even more that we needed to leave. I looked at my friends and made a slight gesture as if telling them we should turn back anyway, without discussing it further. We turned around and started walking, trying to retrace the path we had come from. At first, it seemed possible, but after a few meters, it became confusing. Everything looked the same, and there were no clear references. I felt that slight panic begin to rise because realizing you don't know exactly how to get back changes everything very quickly. Even so, we kept walking in the direction we thought was right. After a few seconds, I looked back. The guide was still in the same spot, standing, watching us move away. He didn't try to follow immediately. He just stood there. That gave me a strange feeling because it seemed like he wasn't worried about losing us, as if he knew we wouldn't be able to get out of there easily. My heart sped up more and I felt my hands start to get cold. We kept walking, now faster, trying to maintain a consistent direction. No one talked much, just exchanged a few short words, trying not to panic. I kept looking around, trying to identify anything that indicated the way back. Any detail, a different rock, a more distinct formation, but nothing helped. Everything looked repeated. That started to give a feeling of being stuck in the same place. That's when I heard footsteps behind us. Not loud, but clear enough. I slowly turned my head and saw the guide walking in our direction. Not fast, not running, just walking, maintaining a constant distance. That made my stomach tighten again, because it didn't look like someone trying to help us return. It looked like someone making sure we didn't get too far away. We didn't stop. We kept walking, trying to ignore his presence behind us, but it was getting harder. I could hear his footsteps keeping the same rhythm, always at a distance that was neither too close nor far enough to disappear. It was constant. That made my breathing shorter, and I felt that pressure in my chest again. That's when Jake said we needed to try going up a bit, find a higher point to get a better view of the area. That made sense immediately. We started climbing a more inclined rock section, carefully so we wouldn't slip. I looked back one last time before climbing further, and the guide had stopped again. He was down there watching. We kept climbing until we reached a higher point, not very comfortable, but enough to get a better view around. That's when I noticed something that gave us direction. In the distance, we could see a more open area, with what looked like a section of the main trail, wider, with fewer rocks closing the path. I told the others right away, and we decided to head in that direction without hesitation. We went down quickly on the other side, carefully not to slip, and started walking as directly as possible toward that point. I didn't look back for the first few seconds, just focused on getting out of there. When I finally looked again, the guide was no longer visible. That didn't bring immediate relief. In fact, it was worse because now we didn't know where he was. We kept walking until we reached the more open area, and there, finally, we could recognize clear signs of a trail, marks on the ground, a more defined space, and after a few minutes, we started hearing voices in the distance. Other people. That was the first moment I felt real relief. We followed that direction until we reached a larger group of tourists. We didn't go back to look for the guide. We didn't try to understand what had happened there. We just left that area as fast as possible. Later, when we tried to find information about that tour, we couldn't find any official record of that guide. No company, no registration. To this day, what bothers me most isn't just the fact that we were taken off the route. It's remembering the way he watched each one of us, as if he were choosing. Story 6. I'm 24 years old and was on a spring break trip with 2 friends in Destin, Florida. We had rented an Airbnb in a group of houses a bit farther from the main area, like an open neighborhood with several identical houses and a shared parking lot in front. Nothing seemed strange when we arrived, and during the day it was actually pretty busy. That night we went out to a party at a bar near the beach and came back pretty late, around 2 or 3 in the morning. When we entered the Airbnb parking lot, everything was quiet. There were almost no cars arriving or leaving at that hour. That's when we saw a car parked in the darkest corner, a bit away from the others. The engine seemed to be on. You could tell from the faint sound and the glow from the dashboard. There was someone inside, but you could only see a silhouette. We made a quick comment about it among ourselves, but no one paid much attention at the time. It just looked like someone waiting or using their phone. We parked the car and got out normally. trying not to make much noise because of the time. Even so, I looked again toward that car. It was still there, in the same place, with the same motionless silhouette inside. You couldn't see any head movement or hands, just someone sitting there. One of my friends even said it was strange for someone to be sitting there so still at that hour. But we were already tired and just wanted to go inside. We walked to the house, opened the door, and went in. As soon as we closed it, the silence inside the Airbnb felt even heavier compared to the noise outside. We dropped our things in the living room, briefly talked about the night, and each of us started heading to our rooms. I stayed in the living room for a few more minutes on my phone, trying to relax before going to sleep. That's when I started thinking about that car again, for no clear reason, just that slight feeling that something wasn't resolved. I stayed there a few more minutes, still with the light on, scrolling without really paying attention. The silence inside was complete, just the faint hum of the air conditioner. At one point, I got up and went to the front window, almost without thinking, just to take a look outside. The street was practically empty, and the car wasn't in the corner anymore. That made me pause for a second. I looked more carefully, trying to see where it had gone. That's when I noticed. It was now parked directly in front of the house. Not in the dark corner, but right in front, aligned with the entrance. The engine still seemed to be on. The silhouette was still inside. That gave me an immediate, stronger discomfort than before, because now it felt directed. I stood there for a few seconds, trying to understand if it could have been a coincidence. Maybe the person had just changed spots or was waiting for someone in another house. Even so, it didn't seem normal. It was too direct. I felt a slight knot in my stomach and stepped away from the window, not wanting to be visible there. That's when I heard the first sound at the door. Very light, like someone testing the handle. My body froze immediately. I stood still, trying to be sure of what I had heard. It came again. A light turn of the handle without force, as if someone was checking if it was locked. My heart started racing instantly. I stayed completely still for a few seconds, trying not to make any noise. My breathing became shallow, and I focused on any sound coming from the door. It came again. The handle turning lightly in the same rhythm. It wasn't someone knocking. It wasn't someone trying to break in, it was someone testing it. That made my stomach tighten even more. I went into the hallway and called my friends very quietly. They came out of their rooms a bit confused, but when I told them what was happening, they understood immediately. We stood together in silence, staring toward the door. No one said anything for a few seconds. The sound at the handle suddenly stopped, and the silence returned. We stood there, trying to hear if anything else would come. No one moved. I could feel my heart pounding, and that sense of alert didn't go away. After a few seconds, one of my friends gestured for us not to go to the door. I agreed immediately. It didn't seem like a good idea to get close. Then another sound came, even lighter, like a touch on the door, almost as if someone was placing their fingers against the wood. That was worse than the handle, because it felt intentional. I looked at my friends, and you could tell they were feeling the same thing. No one wanted to speak out loud. We stayed in silence, trying to listen more carefully. A few seconds later, the sound stopped completely. No footsteps walking away, nothing. That was what bothered me the most, because there was no way to know if the person was still there on the other side of the door. I felt that constant tension in my body, like anything could happen at any moment. I went to the window again, this time more carefully, staying slightly back so I wouldn't be visible. I looked through a gap in the curtain. The car was still there, in the same place, with the engine apparently on, and the silhouette still inside. That made my stomach tighten again because it didn't make sense. If someone was at the door, they couldn't be inside the car at the same time. I stepped away from the window slowly, trying to process it without panicking. My mind started trying to build some kind of explanation, but nothing made sense. I went back to the middle of the living room where my friends were and quietly told them what I had seen. Their reaction was immediate. One of them even moved closer to the window to try to see, but I signaled for him not to get too close. We stood there trying to decide what to do. Calling the police seemed like the most logical option, but at the same time, no one wanted to make noise or give any sign that we were reacting. That's when another sound came from the door. This time a bit firmer, not a bang but clearer, like someone insisting a little more. My heart raced instantly. We looked at each other without needing to say anything. It was clear that this wasn't just going to stop on its own. I slowly picked up my phone, trying not to make noise, and started dialing, hesitating for just a second. That's when I heard a slight movement outside, like someone had taken a step back from the door. I went to the window one more time carefully and looked through the gap. The car was still there, exactly in the same place, the silhouette still inside. That made my stomach tighten again, because it confirmed it wasn't the same person at the door. Or at least it didn't seem possible. I felt that sense of urgency grow, because now it wasn't just strange, it was something that didn't add up at all. I didn't wait anymore. I called the police right away, speaking quietly, trying to explain what was happening without sounding completely lost. Meanwhile, we stayed in the middle of the living room in silence, just listening. After that last sound, there was nothing else from the door. No touch, no turning of the handle, just silence. A few minutes later, we heard a car passing on the street. Not fast, but steady. When I finally had the courage to look out the window again, the car in front of the house was gone. The street looked empty again, as if nothing had happened. The police came a while later and did a quick check, but found nothing. No car, no one nearby, nothing. We explained everything, but there wasn't much to show. No marks on the door, no signs of forced entry. To this day, what bothers me the most isn't just the fact that someone tried to get in. It's remembering that while that was happening at the door, there was someone sitting inside a car right in front of the house, as if they were waiting for that exact moment.
I'm really grateful for staying until the last minute. It's always good to know that you're here, listening to every detail. If you liked it, comment which part was the scariest for you. And of course, sign up to keep listening to stories as dark as this one. See you in the next video.